It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. Our top story. 241 passengers confirmed dead as an Air India flight on its way to London crashes moments after takeoff. Others on the ground are also killed. 52 British nationals on board are amongst the dead, making it the worst aviation crash involving Britons since 9/11. The miracle in seat 11A. We hear from the family of the only survivor, a British man who somehow walked away from the crash.
3 minutes later, he video called my dad. As he crashed, he said, "Our plane's crashed." All of that. I don't know where my brother is. I don't see any other passengers. I don't know how I'm alive.
The Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, tonight chairs an emergency Cobra meeting following the disaster as the Prime Minister offered his condolences.
There will be British and Indian families across the land who are absolutely impacted by this, and our thoughts, first and foremost, are with them.
Crash investigators, including a team from the UK, are now working to determine what went wrong, with new questions for Boeing, the manufacturer of the plane. Well, that story is dominating tomorrow's front pages. We'll have more in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Good evening. It was a disaster that unfolded over a matter of just seconds. Tonight, all but one of the 242 people on board a flight from India to London have been confirmed as dead after it crashed moments after taking off. Amongst those killed, 52 British nationals, making it the worst aviation disaster involving Britons since 9/11. But amongst the tragedy, an extraordinary story of escape, with one man from Leicester the only survivor. The incident occurred in the west of the country, in the bustling city of Ahmedabad. Air India's Flight 171, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, taxied onto the runway at the city's main airport, en route to London Gatwick. The plane, carrying 242 people, departed at its scheduled time of 1:38 in the afternoon local time, 9:08 this morning UK time. Just moments after takeoff, a mayday signal was received by air traffic control. The plane's last recorded position showed it had an altitude of just 625 feet. The plane then crashed into a residential hostel housing doctors, where many were said to be on their lunch break. The explosion caused fires to the surrounding areas. Well, Sky's India correspondent Neville Lanzaris joins us now, live from the scene of the crash in Ahmedabad. And Neville, what is the situation at the moment? Obviously, investigations have begun.
Yes, they have started. We've seen a number of officials from the Director General of Civil Aviation Authority out here. I did manage to speak to one who said they haven't yet found the black box. They are still searching for it. This was an hour ago. But we are on the outer periphery of where the crash has taken place. The inner core is that one behind me. You can see the building, the facade of which has been charred. But that hasn't, that's just not the only place where the effects of the crash. Just beside me is one of the wings of the plane, dismembered from the rest of the body, thrown quite a few meters away from the main part of the crash. But right down on the right and the left, we've seen debris strewn all across. There's a putrid smell of aviation fuel, burnt rubber, all of that still lingering in the air. When we came here, there was smoke from debris still burned. You could see the smoke coming out from the debris. Parts of it were still burning many hours later. Rescue workers were here earlier on. They have finished combing the area of any remains of people. They have gone back, but there are still investigators still sifting through the debris, this charred debris all around this area.
Neville, for now, thank you. We will hear more from Neville in a moment. But now Sky's international correspondent, Alex Rossi, has our first report and a warning that it contains some distressing images of the crash and its aftermath.
It was clear almost immediately that the Air India flight was in serious trouble. Less than a minute after takeoff, the aircraft began losing altitude before a massive explosion filled the sky. This CCTV footage shows what happened from another angle. The aeroplane had failed to gain height, flying low and flat before coming down. A mayday call had been made to air traffic control moments before the disaster. The Boeing Dreamliner was fully loaded with fuel when it crashed into this residential area at 1:38 p.m. local time. The flight was bound for London's Gatwick Airport. 242 people were on board. That number includes 53 British nationals. Miraculously, one passenger did walk away. Vishwa Kumar Ramesh, who's British, can be seen moments after the crash. He's dazed, but relatively unscathed. In the video, he tells people around him that he came off the plane. He was travelling with his brother, who did not survive. The airline has set up an emergency helpline for the relatives of those on board.
We are actively working with the authorities on all emergency response efforts. A special team of caregivers from Air India is on their way to Ahmedabad to provide additional support. The investigations will take time, but anything we can do now, we are doing.
The scale of the tragedy has been compounded by its location, right in the heart of a built-up neighbourhood. Debris is scattered everywhere, with parts of the aircraft lodged in buildings. Photographs taken from inside housing used by medical workers show part of the plane's landing gear. In a dining room nearby, plates are still on tables, evidence that residents were eating when the aircraft tore through. Emergency crews arrived at the scene throughout the day as teams searched for any signs of life and began the grim task of recovering bodies. This has now become a coordinated response involving multiple agencies on the ground. At nearby hospitals, the scene is frantic. Casualties are being rushed in for treatment, many with severe injuries.
The process of retrieving all the dead bodies is almost complete. DNA profiling of the family members of the victims will also be completed very soon. Those victims whose families are abroad, information has been sent to them, and as soon as they reach them, their DNA samples will be collected. And the process of collecting DNA samples of the dead will also have been completed.
The cause of the crash at this stage remains unknown. Aviation investigators are now beginning the long and complex process of determining what went wrong in what is already being called one of the worst disasters in India's aviation history. Alex Rossi, Sky News.
Let's return now to our India correspondent Neville Lazarus, who's at the site of the crash. Neville, we saw there in Alex's report that there is just one survivor, and you managed to speak to him earlier.
That's correct, Julian. A miraculous escape. If you see the kind of social images of that plane plummeting into the earth and erupting into a fireball, this one person is sort of walked out, and we did manage to get access to his ward. I did go into his ward, and he was almost half sitting on his bed. He was in his blue hospital fatigues, and I did ask him his name, and asked him how he's feeling. He nodded. He acknowledged me. He nodded, saying he's okay. He had a few bruises on his hands and his face, but otherwise he was conscious. He was just sort of acknowledging, and he was conscious, awake, talking to some of the attendants out there, and then immediately there were plainclothes policemen and the hospital staff who ushered me away. They didn't want me to talk to him anymore. There were officials going to get briefings from him, etc. But he looked absolutely, he looked fine. He looked like someone who's had a slight accident. In fact, then I met the doctor, Dr. Shafiq, who was the first doctor who attended to him when he was brought to the hospital in the ambulance, and the doctor told me that he was conscious. He had a slight limp, but he had a few bruises on his face and arms, but otherwise all fine. They did some internal checks and they found he was okay, and then moved towards a ward. So a miraculous escape in this absolutely shocking tragedy the country is facing at the moment.
Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, the only survivor. Neville, thank you very much. Here, the King and the Prime Minister express their condolences to those affected by the disaster. Details of the 52 British nationals killed in the crash are still emerging. But as we just heard, there was an escape almost beyond belief for one man whose family live in Leicester. Our home editor, Jason Farrell, reports.
It just doesn't seem possible. The man in the white T-shirt, a passenger from seat 11A, walking from the wreckage with barely a limp. British man Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, survivor but confused and distraught that his brother is missing. His family in Leicester spoke to him in hospital and just before takeoff.
When he was on the runway, well, my dad called him and Vishwa said, "Oh, we're going to take off soon." And then literally like 2 minutes later, he video called my dad. As he crashed, he said, "Oh, our plane's crashed." All of that. I don't know where my brother is. I don't see any other passengers. I don't know how I'm alive, how I exited the plane.
I can hear your voice shaking. I know this is a silly question, but how are you and your family keeping up at the moment?
I mean, you can see the state of my mum. Like, we're all just, I've got no words to describe it.
In the family home, friends gathered to offer support. One extraordinary story must have given faint hope to the families of the other 52 British nationals on board. Some in Leicester trying to get information from the local travel agent.
For those family, relatives and friends whose they are affected, it is a real sad and very difficult moment for them, because obviously our community, especially Asian community, has a well network and they're in connection with their relatives, their friends, so they are very close with them and they have a bigger impact in their lives.
The Prime Minister gave his reaction to the disaster.
I speak for the entire country in saying our thoughts are with each and every one of those involved. There will be British and Indian families across the land who are absolutely impacted by this, and our thoughts, first and foremost, are with them. Obviously, the investigation is going on. We've dispatched an investigation team that's been deployed. The Foreign Secretary is leading on this, and we'll obviously update as soon as we can. But we're working with the Indian authorities on this to establish the facts. I would say to all families, friends of anybody affected, to please contact the Foreign Office for further information.
In a statement, the King said, "My wife and I have been desperately shocked by the terrible event in Ahmedabad this morning. Our special prayers and deepest possible sympathy are with the family and friends of all those affected by this appallingly tragic incident across so many nations as they await the news of their loved ones." At the time of these prayers in Neasden Temple in London, Air India Flight 171 should have just touched down in Gatwick. Its passengers arriving on British soil, 53 of them coming home.
All our mandirs, temples here in the UK have been offering prayers. We will also offer prayers here before the Aarti ceremony. We will offer prayers for the unfortunate people who have passed away, the passengers, the crew, the pilots, also for all their family members, that they may find strength and courage at this very difficult and challenging time.
This is one of many communities across the UK still coming to terms with what's happened. The worst aviation disaster for British citizens since 9/11. Here, one brother survived, another is lost.
I was meant to pick them up. We were going to have a party on the weekends, family gathering.
For so many families, everything has changed, forever, in an instant. Jason Farrell, Sky News.
The Foreign Secretary has this evening chaired an emergency COBRA meeting as British air investigators head to India to help work out what happened. David Lammy then went to the Mansion House for a major policy speech in the past half hour, with his first words were about the Air India crash.
Can I also begin by expressing my thoughts, being with all those affected by the tragic plane crash in India this morning. I've of course been in touch with Foreign Minister Jaishankar to offer my condolences, and the Foreign Office has stood up a crisis team to support British nationals and their families.
Well, our political correspondent Rob Powell joins us from Downing Street now. Rob, what was the outcome of the COBRA meeting?
We don't know, actually. They didn't issue a readout. We were just told that David Lammy, who's been leading the UK government response to this, chaired it a little earlier this afternoon. We don't know exactly who went to it either. You would suspect the Department for Transport would be involved, potentially the Air Accident Investigation Branch as well. What we do know, though, is that 4 inspectors from the Air Accident Investigation Branch are currently on their way to India to help with Indian investigators looking into how this crash took place. Now, they will be given big access, full access to the Indian investigation because of the international procedures that govern investigations of these sorts, that grant British inspectors what's technically known as expert status because of the fact that there was British passengers on board that plane. There may well be another COBRA in the days or so ahead. There's no confirmation of that yet. What essentially they will be doing in there is convening the relevant departments, ministers, officials and agencies, making sure everyone has up-to-date information and essentially coming up with a response. I think the difficulty is at the moment, the government aren't really saying or giving too much information about what happened, because I guess everyone is waiting for information to come out of India about what precisely caused this crash. So we may well get some more information in the days ahead about what the more immediate government response is going to be. We have also had, though, details about how the government wants to support families affected by this. A liaison officer was sent to Gatwick Airport, where the plane was due in earlier today, presumably to help any families or relatives that were arriving there. There's been crisis teams stood up, as David Lammy was saying, both in Delhi and in London, a phone number that the Foreign Office has set up that worried relatives or friends are being pointed towards. We have also had MPs sending their own condolences, especially MPs with big Indian communities. We've had Rishi Sunak, whose wife, Akshata Murthy, of course, is Indian, saying they're shocked and saddened by what they have seen. The days ahead, as I say, may bring another COBRA meeting. They tend to be arranged as and when. At the moment, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, hasn't spoken to Narendra Modi in India, but that could happen soon, potentially, as well. But I think for now, Downing Street and the UK government, much like the rest of the world, waiting for further details about how something like this could have happened.
Indeed. Rob, thank you very much. Well, Flight 171 should have landed at Gatwick Airport early this evening. A reception centre was set up there for the relatives of any passengers on board. Sky's Molly Malone joins us from Gatwick now. And, Molly, have you seen any evidence of families availing themselves of the help that's been given at Gatwick?
Well, as you say, Gillian, 4 hours ago now, this flight should have landed here at Gatwick. Instead, tonight, the situation's so tragically different. I've been here at Gatwick throughout the course of the day. As you say, we know that they've set up a reception centre to provide support, to provide assistance to the hundreds of people with loved ones on board that flight. We expect some people to be coming perhaps here direct to the terminal, speaking to staff to try and gain answers as to exactly what happened. Many others, though, using that emergency hotline set up by the Foreign Office. This was supposed to be a routine flight. Air India have a number of them travelling between direct flights between Islamabad and here at Gatwick every single week, a 10-hour direct flight. Instead, we have a situation where the UK's High Commissioner and a number of the UK's air investigation team are heading out towards India, expecting to land there tomorrow afternoon as they look to cooperate and coordinate to try and establish the facts of exactly what happened. There's also a flight leaving here, heading out to Islamabad tomorrow morning at 8:30 tomorrow morning. No doubt we expect to see family members on that flight, perhaps looking for answers as to what happened to their hundreds of loved ones on board that flight. Gillian, I've been here throughout the course of the day at Gatwick, the UK's second largest, second busiest airport, an international hub. Many people coming up to the world's media asking questions, asking what's happened. Really that news settling in, sinking in, and I think it's exactly those questions that hundreds of family members that have lost loved ones on board that flight will be asking this evening.
Molly, thank you. The Indian Civil Aviation Minister has confirmed that a formal investigation has been launched by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau. Our science correspondent Thomas Moore has been looking at what could have gone wrong.
Fatal plane crashes are rare, but they do happen. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner has a stellar safety record. This is the first fatal crash. So what could have gone wrong? Well, flight AI 171 departed at 13:38 local time from Ahmedabad, a city in the Indian state of Gujarat. It was heading for London Gatwick, due to land just over 9 hours later. Actual flight data shows the aircraft leaving on time, accelerating down the runway and lifting off. But it only reached an altitude of 190 metres before crashing just beyond the airport perimeter into an accommodation block for doctors. The aircraft was the original 787-8 model of the Dreamliner, which Boeing started building in 2009. Air crash investigators will examine the 2 black boxes that record the conversations in the cockpit and also the data from the aircraft. What will they look for? Well, first off, the engines. At takeoff, they would have been working at maximum thrust. Even if there's a mechanical failure in one, the aircraft should have still been able to fly. So did the aircraft collide with a flock of birds as it lifted off, causing both engines to lose power? It's caused crashes in the past. They'll also look for evidence of pilot error. The captain and co-pilot were experienced, with more than 9,000 flying hours between them. But other crashes have been caused by pilots accidentally shutting down the one remaining working engine. Video shows that the plane doesn't drop from the sky. It looks like it's coming in to land. One experienced pilot told Sky News the flaps on the wings don't seem to be extended as they should.
I can't see any sign of takeoff flap being set. And with an aircraft of this type, you would have to have the correct flap setting for takeoff. So if for any reason that hadn't been selected or it had failed, that would perhaps be an explanation for why such a well-designed public transport aircraft should go down immediately after takeoff.
It's too early to know exactly what went wrong. Indian air safety authorities will lead on the investigation with help from the UK's Air Accident Investigation Branch. Experts from Boeing are also on standby. They'll want to quickly establish whether this is a catastrophic one-off or if there is evidence of a technical problem that could affect the 1,100 or so other Dreamliners currently in service.
Well, this is the first time a 787 has crashed since the Dreamliner went into service in 2011. But the aircraft had a troubled start, and Boeing, more broadly, has been through a very turbulent few years. Just last month, it agreed to pay £812 million in a deal with the US government to avoid prosecution over 2 crashes involving its 737 MAX jets, which together killed 346 people. Our business and economics correspondent, Gurpreet Narwan, reports.
Door panels blowing off, missing bolts, fuselage blowouts. A spate of incidents and crashes, some of them catastrophic, that have rocked the aviation industry. And more questions for Boeing, one of the world's largest plane manufacturers and once the darling of corporate America. The exact cause of the latest crash is still unknown, but it's been a sobering few years for the company. Almost 350 people died in 2 crashes in 2018 and 2019. The company admitted to Congress that pilots weren't given adequate training on new software. Dreamliners were meant to be different, stars of the fleet, and used by almost every major airline. Now they too are under scrutiny.
The issue that Boeing is going to have to deal with urgently is that of confidence around its manufacturing processes. It's been through, over the last few years, a series of inquiries around why its manufacturing has not been up to scratch and not been as fail-safe as it should have been. It's vital that Boeing reassure as quickly as possible because so many of the 787 Dreamliners are flying as we speak around the world.
And Air India, which boasts a robust safety record, now recording its 5th fatal accident in almost 60 years. All of this just as a big reset was underway at Boeing. The company recently agreed to pay $1.1 billion to avoid prosecution in a deal with the Department of Justice that angered the families of victims.
There are real lives at stake here, and when something goes wrong, tragedy affects hundreds of people. It's not just a minor mistake. So it's a really good example of why it is so important for, in our case, to make sure that Boeing is doing the right things and being overseen properly.
Under a new chief executive, sales were up and the share price recovering, but this has stopped that progress in its tracks. Shares were down more than 4% when the market opened. In a statement, Boeing said their deepest condolences went out to the loved ones of the people on board and in Ahmedabad, and that a Boeing team stood ready to support the investigation by Indian authorities. As of yet, we don't know what caused the accident, but the company's reputation is hanging by a thread. Gabri Nawan, Sky News.
Well, with questions sure to be asked of Boeing in the coming days, in the past hour, the US Transportation Secretary has said there are no immediate safety concerns about current 787 flights, but they will take action if concerns are brought to light.
We don't have that information yet. It's very new. Our teams are just going to deploy right now. As the acting administrator mentioned, we were invited to come over by India. They're good partners of ours. We work together really well. So they have to get on the ground and take a look. But again, right now it would be way too premature. Again, people are looking at videos and trying to assess what happened, which is never a strong, smart way to make decisions on what took place. If there are initial factors of concern in regard to safety, as the administrator noted, we will be made aware and we will take action because for us, safety is paramount. But whenever one of these planes go down, we take it very seriously and deploy every asset and resource at our avail to assist in those investigations.
Sean Duffy there, the US Transportation Secretary. That was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by columnist and leader writer at The Times, Sebastian Payne, and the associate political editor of The New Statesman, Rachel Cunliffe. And of course, the main story we'll be discussing, the Air India crash, and this headline and picture on the front page of The Sun. The miracle Brit in seat 11A. We'll be right back. Do stay with us.